Are you ready to grow your company to 8 figures? In this show, we give you real tactical advice from real 8-figure entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Scaling Secrets Podcast.
What's up, guys? And we're back for another episode of Scaling Secrets, brought to you by Otter PR, the fastest growing PR agency in North America, possibly even the world. We have a very friendly guest, a recurring guest on the show, co-founder of Otter PR, Mr. Scott Bartnick. How are you, brother?
Great. Thank you for having me, Justin.
Absolutely. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you. The systems, machinery, engineering mind. For someone like me, there's a lot to learn. So we're going to talk today about how to go from 0 employees, a complete startup, to 50 or possibly even 100 employees. And then we'll get into how do you get from 100 to 1,000. But let's start from there. How does someone start a business? It's just you and your buddy, or just you in a basement somewhere. And before you know it, you blink twice and you have 3 nights sleeps, and now you have 50, possibly even 100 employees. What's the timeline on that?
Yeah, so first you have to start from the beginning. So obviously with any business, you need to figure out your service. So once you have a scalable product, a product that's working well for you, as an executive, you need to figure out how to replace the work you were doing. So anything that's repeatable, anything that operation side potentially, you need to figure out what your expertise is and then start filling the gaps with individuals. So for us, the first person we hired was to help us with the service side of it. So we went from me and Jay, the co-founders of the business, and we were running everything. We were doing sales, operations, outreach, the service. And so the first thing we wanted to do is take off of our plate was that service piece of it, because that's not what we were experts at. And so we hired someone to then fill that position. And once we got them trained and built, that's when you start scaling it. So you're always looking basically just to, as you hit capacity, you're looking to bring someone in to kind of free up your time or your team's time. So that's pretty much the basics of how you scale. And there's a lot of tricks in that we'll talk about on how you actually go from, that individual one new employee to 50 to 100, the 401k, the healthcare, things like that.
Yeah. So who was the first person you hired?
So Colleen was our first hire. She's still with us. She's our CRO. That was almost 3 years ago now. And we got very lucky. We hired her through COVID, and there was basically a hiring freeze. And so no one was recruiting, no one was hiring, no one was growing or scaling. And so that was part of our secret to success, was we saw that opportunity to bring in really good talent at affordable rates for us as a startup. And so we were able to bring in the best people. We bought out entire PR firms at that time, and that's part of our secret, part of our scaling. But yeah, Colleen's been with us forever.
How'd that interview go? What was she applying for?
So the interview was actually at a coffee shop, so we didn't have an office. We were still working in an apartment. The interview went great. There was no structure to it. It was just like, hi, we're Jay and Scott. We
need help.
We need help. Please come. No, that's exactly it. But not only that, come work in our apartment. And so that was a big thing, is come work in these random 2 guys' apartments who, don't have a huge history of success in business, and trust us that we're first going to be able to pay the bills, but second off, who knows what was going to happen. And so that was we had 10 employees in that apartment before we moved into an office. So we were almost a year in, 10 employees, people sitting on the floor.
Really?
Of the apartment. There were literally people sitting on the floor. I would take naps in the middle of the workday. So to give you an idea of where we came from, that's just part of growing. Everyone worked in a garage, in a basement. That's just part of it.
It's like a mini Google. Instead of you go play volleyball, maybe you go to the cafeteria, you get a sweat on, you just hang out at Jay and Scott's apartment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you, so I don't even know if convince is the right word, but how did you get 10 people to just hang out at your house? Was it because you were a former engineer and he was a former doctor, so the prestige of those careers, it's like, okay, at very least, these guys are smart?
Yeah, so there's a little trust in Jay and I and our abilities, but again, we were unproven at the time. We both had some business success and there was some PR about us, but it was really more of opportunity for us as we were hiring when no one else wasn't. So there was a lot of layoffs. There were people that were servers. There were people that were whatever it is, or even PR professionals were laid off. At one point, we had the head of communications for SeaWorld working for us because she was furloughed. So we got to talk to someone who was making probably $500,000 a year, and we brought her in at a per client rate that was very, very affordable. So we were having the best talent working at, I don't want to say it, but cut rate prices because of what was going on at the time. And of course, that was all we could afford because we were bootstrapping. We were paying for it out of our own pocket. So it wasn't like we were trying to, cut corners or cut costs. We just literally couldn't afford it. We weren't playing with the big boys yet. And so that was part of our secret was, figuring out how to convince these people that, hey, it's not a full-time job, but here's some extra cash. So we actually brought everyone in originally as contractors, and we would pay them success fees per client, per placement, whatever that would look like. And we had a few individuals who were full-time with us. And so that was another kind of secret to scaling at an affordable rate.
Yeah, it seems a lot, though. It seems like you really have to have someone convinced, or they really have to love what you're doing or love you to say, okay, you know what? We're going to hang out in this apartment. We're going to work. We're going to get this going. And I feel like a lot of the time when these employees do that, when you see people do that, and history will tell you that it wasn't so much of just having a job. It was more of a mission and a purpose. What was the mission that you think or you believe that your former employees and current employees that you still have to this day from that time period, what was their mindset going in like as far as like a mission-driven statement of, listen, we're going to change the world, we're going to do this, has a big purpose. What do you think it was about PR? Because PR, it's not a nonprofit, so what do you think they were thinking?
I mean, I think part of it is sales. You're always selling on the internal and external, so you're trying to get your team excited, get them involved, but there's something magical about a startup. There's something exciting about being on the ground floor of a business and, really being part of that. Like I said, Colleen's our COO now, and hopefully she never leaves us. We really rely on her, and I will very much say that she was part of building this business. So as someone, you get to come in and help shape and mold and be an owner in a business, whereas if you go to, a multi-billion-dollar company, you're just another number. You're replaceable, and you're very easily replaceable.
Yep.
Whereas with us, even with this team that we have now, we're at 50, individuals still have an opportunity to talk directly with the CEOs, to make impact and make changes, to present to us, and really, if they're loud enough and really kind of push their agenda, they can really help shape the business. And that's the exciting part, is when we're still at 50, you still have that opportunity. As you grow faster and bigger, it becomes more and more structured, where you have your org structure very kind of positioned. And so that's where we are now, is, there's only a few people that can talk to them on a day-to-day basis just because of our org structure. And it's not because I don't want to talk to people, but I can't have 50 reports. And so that's part of the magic, too, of going from that small business where you have 3 or 4 people to really putting in middle-level management, putting in higher-level management, and putting in a strong org structure where you say, hey, listen, unfortunately, I can't manage all these emails. You just can't communicate with me. You have to communicate with your manager. So that's the kind of that next step in growing your business.
Yeah, and for someone from an engineering background, you must love that. You see this machine that you put together, and now it's running, and even if you go, you go on vacation, you go on a cruise, you go to Europe, it's still running.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny, but there's a couple simple steps in our structure that were magical, and implementing an org structure was one of those. Like I said, is now we have a lot of managers. They all do their one-on-ones. They do their team meetings. It is not possible for an individual to be involved in 50 people's work and to monitor and to make sure they're doing it right and to train them. If I bring on people that report directly to me, I can only bring on one a month because I have to properly train them. So that's a big thing, is I can right now scale. I could hire 15, 20 people and make sure that they're all being trained properly because they're getting partnered one-to-one with a trainer and one-to-one with a manager. And so that's a big piece of scalability, is making sure that you're bringing people in correctly and that you really kind of structure it so, eventually as a founder, right now I'm very much operating. I'm in the business, I'm improving the business, but eventually I'd like to be an owner, not an employee. And I think that's part of the goal for any business owner.
Yeah, I feel like you like to work, though. You're a workhorse.
I do. I work 24/7. I work all weekend.
Yeah, there's no lack of effort when it comes to Scott.
No, of course.
Oh, man. I always thought about that. Like, the startups and the corporations, like, people like security. As human beings, we love security. We love to know that we're going to get paid on Friday. Like, that's like, people love security, right? That's a big thing. And when you don't have security, that's when people get uneasy, they get anxious, they have anxiety. But if you join something that's already working, then yeah, like what you said, you're just a number, and they can fire you, and you're very easily replaceable. But it's the startup floor. When you're in something that's just starting, you might get equity in the company. If the company, whether they go public or not, you can have ownership in the company. Like, look at the guy that painted the mural at Facebook, and now he's like a multi-millionaire because he got Facebook stock. These are all things that contribute to that, but people, they don't want to, they're not really attracted to something that doesn't have a proven track record, because they're like, oh, I don't know, we might be out of business and then I'm going to have to find a new job. So I always thought, like, man, you might as well work for the startup, assuming that you respect the owners, you think they're intelligent, because that's all the opportunity. If you work for, Goldman Sachs, like, you're just another guy or another girl.
And I 100% agree with that. That's part of the reason why I started my own business. I worked for a multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 company, and I saw them lay off people during a recession. I saw them give people early retirement with a parachute, of course, or just completely do cutbacks. And, in my perspective, I was like, well, I thought, I'm an engineer. I thought corporate was the safety net. I didn't think that I would ever have to do that or view it in that way. And what it really comes down to is, for the business, they're optimizing. So you might be the best employee in the world. You might crush it at your job, but in big business, they're going to cut out an entire sector. And it's much easier for them, especially when they're doing cutbacks, to just let that entire sector go and fire them and move on. And they don't care. And just because you killed it, you might have been the best person in that sector, they still might just let you go. Whereas in a startup, we make adjustments all the time, but we're not firing people because we're kind of dropping an initiative. We're just shifting them around because, everyone wears multiple hats, and we really spent a lot of time and money developing talent. So if you're producing, whether that sector is doing well or not, we're just going to move you. There'd be no reason to get rid of good talent. And so that's just a different thing. I personally view it as you're changing the risk when you move to a startup. Yes, there's an opportunity that the business doesn't succeed, but there's also more opportunity for you to win.
Way more opportunity. Yeah, because like you said, in a Fortune 500 company, you're a dime a dozen. Even if you have a high executive, like anyone that has a job, you can get fired at any time.
Yeah, literally. I've seen executives, again, with a big company, you get parachutes, but you still get fired.
It's a little different,
yeah.
But still, you don't have any control.
Right.
Essentially.
And that's the thing too, is in a bigger company, you have less control. Whereas a startup, if you come in and I say, hey, our revenue's down, we might have to let some people go, and you're a salesperson, you say, no, I can go make 10 sales. I will help with this. And so that's one of the greatest things with business. I mean, one of the things we did when we were really focused on growth is we hired as quick as we could, and we brought in 15 people in a week. And then I looked at the numbers and I was like, oh shoot, we need to bring in 20 new clients this week or we're in trouble. We're going to start going negative.
Or negative,
yeah. Or we're negative. And as the founder who's putting when we go negative, it's coming out of my pocket.
Yeah.
We really sat down with the sales team and we're like, guys, I need 20 clients. I don't care what it takes. And the team did it. They did it pretty much next day. And so that's one of the magical things about these startups and being a part of that is you can make an impact, not just in your pocket, but everyone else's, and you help bring and grow a new initiative.
Yeah, and when it's a smaller team too, it's like that tribe mentality, right? Like you can talk to everyone can get along, these people, you become friends with them, when you're in a huge corporation, there's so many people, you lose that sense of caring because there's so many. It's like living in New York. When you're walking around Manhattan, I feel like people don't care as much versus if you live in a small town where you appreciate your neighbor, you appreciate everyone. When you're in New York, you're with a ton of people, or any big city, there's so many people that the lack of caring kind of goes down a little bit. That's definitely interesting. What are some of the things that you respect now that you didn't even consider when you started from 0 employees to where you are now?
That's a great question. So I think that, as an employer, there's a lot of pieces you have to check off to be a good employer. And part of that is, of course, the culture that you build. So in our interviewing process, one of the most important things we look at is cultural. We don't necessarily look at the highest skilled. We look at people that are going to fit our culture and the ability to learn. So that's a critical part. You'll notice that our team is fun. A lot of them are best friends. On social media, they're hanging out together. They're doing stuff, which makes it a better workplace, makes people excited to come into work, and honestly helps with retention, helps keep everything going. But again, as an employer, there's other check marks. Is offering 401k, offering healthcare, making sure you're compliant. These are all these steps that happen throughout this process to make sure that you're taking care of your team properly, and it's not just about how much you pay them. And that's the biggest thing, that as a startup, we're still not the highest paying company in the world because we're a startup. But understanding that there are other ways with work-life balance and really just taking care of mental health and making sure that employees feel engaged and showing them future growth and showing them, our company, I actually just looked at the numbers today. Our company has grown year over year. We're 90% growth, which is down from last year, but still pretty good.
Still good, yeah.
Still good, especially when we're entering a recession. but you also look at the numbers, our wages have also gone up 90%. So that means that as our business grows, we are putting in the exact same percentage. So we're dedicated to making sure that as we grow, we're putting that back into our team's pocket. And I think that's a huge thing, is really understanding that, it is a mission for everyone, and everyone's going to see that together. And so I think that's something that's exciting about startups as well.
How important is it to you and Jay and other entrepreneurs, CEOs, co-founders, founders? How important is it to you guys that your team is happy?
It's critical. I want to come into a place that I want to work at. So one of the easiest ways to get fired here is culture. We have let people go because they don't fit, they're argumentative, they don't buy in, they're rude. That's the first thing that will get you fired, and way overwork. If you're an amazing person but you're not doing a great job, we're going to try to coach you. We're going to try to help you. We're going to push you through. As long as you're showing up and being helpful and having a positive impact on the team, you're a value to us. And so that's critical. And again, it's just so fun coming into a place where you get to watch everyone happy and excited to be there.
Do you think, like, when you were working for the big, the Fortune 500 engineering firm, and you were an employee, now that you have your own business and it's a successful business, are you making sure that all the things that bothered you are fixed here?
As much as I can. So one of the things that we do is unlimited PTO. I'm a big proponent of, I just had this conversation with someone, I'm a big proponent of goal-oriented versus hours. We don't pay our team by hours. We have in-office, we have remote, but from a high-level perspective, if you're crushing all your goals, all of your clients are happy, or you're a sales executive and you're crushing sales, you're the highest salesperson, I don't need to know your hours. And I think that was something that I didn't like about working corporately is, if I came in an hour late, I wasn't in trouble, but people noticed. And I think that
It builds up resentment over time.
It builds up resentment over time. And not to say we don't notice as a team as well, as we definitely, especially if you're in office, we want people here. But it really is, if you say, hey, I'm going to go work from home on a Thursday, or I have a doctor's appointment, we're very, very flexible with that situation and to give you that unlimited PTO. So again, it's yours to lose, in the sense that, as long as you're crushing it for the team, go take your vacation and go enjoy your life and have that work-life balance. And I think that across the United States, we do that wrong. And so that was something that personally was very, very important to me.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? Well, why do owners, even if you are providing profit for the business, you're driving business to the business, you're a driving force, you're a workhorse, and let's say you, for, I don't know, an hour, I see it all the time where there's nothing to do. Why do people that own businesses, maybe more traditional type of people, why do they want people just to be busy?
Yeah.
Like, what's the psychological component of, I just want you to be moving, even if you do nothing? Is it kind of like, as an owner, do you kind of think, well, I'm paying you, so I just, even if you're not doing anything, and it's illogical, it makes me psychologically feel better if you're just making like you work?
Yeah, so, I mean, yes. Yes.
Why is that?
No, so we just, about 3 months ago, we lost an employee. They got poached. And one of the things they mentioned was that their new company was going to allow them to be fully remote. They were going to give them computers and equipment and all of these great things that they mentioned. And they just came back to us and tried to reapply. And one of the things they mentioned was that the company uses a trackpad on their mouse to make sure that the mouse is always moving.
Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. and the computer that they got was 10 years old. So I think that always watch out for those fake promises. We use a project management software called Asana, and basically the tool is project-based. We don't do any time tracking, and that's because our clients are paying us for results, and we're paying our team for results. And I think that's really the end of the day. Now, you mentioned kind of this downtime is, when there is downtime and you're doing nothing, it kind of is your own ability to be promoted. So yes, if you're making expectations and you're doing nothing extra, you're going to stay there. You're going to stay flat. So that downtime is really up to you. If you're hitting all your goals and all your expectations, perfect. If you have downtime and you don't want to do anything else, I guess don't do anything else, but that won't build you and grow you with the company. And so that's the biggest thing, is we give people the opportunity and the rope to hang themselves is, hey, if you work and you build and you show ownership and you take ownership and you create projects and you get involved in projects, then you're going to be promoted and you're going to grow quickly with us. And that's one of the reasons why Colleen is our COO, because she was able to take initiative and always working towards the goal that the company was and really put that energy back in. And so there was no downtime with her. And you mentioned that I'm a workhorse. I work 24/7. And that's one thing she does. And I literally tell her, hey, take tomorrow off. And that's the same thing the team does to me. Sometimes we just overdo it.
How important do you think that is, the work-life balance? Do you think that it doesn't really matter? Like if you work and you love it, you're going to be, running at high RPMs? Or do you think even if you're Elon Musk, you need to take a break?
You need to take a break. Efficiency is a thing. I think that I personally run at a very high level, but once I'm burnt, when I can't make decisions anymore, I'm fatigued. I can keep working, but they're bad decisions. I'm less efficient. Things take me longer. The biggest thing about, we mandate personal health days, mental health days, because it's proven that you're gonna be more efficient. You're gonna work faster if you have a clear head. So sometimes, Jay and I have had this conversation with each other, the other co-founders, do not come into work if you don't feel good. Because especially for us, it's so important for our attitude to be positive and for us to be efficient and for us to handle the stresses that are coming at us. So if there's external things in our lives that are impacting our ability to make decisions, we've told each other, stay home. And I pulled him aside and he's pulled me aside and said, hey, Scott, go home. It's not your day. And it happens. And that happens, I'll go home, I'll take a nap. I'll probably get back on my computer later, but at least I have that opportunity. And that's what we want to implement for the rest of our team too, is burnout is just because you're not managing your time properly and you're not listening to your body when it says we're tired, we need a break, we need to clear our head.
But that's assuming that, you have a good employee, right? Because I can see so many people taking advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we still track time off and we track performance, and we have our own safeguards to make sure, someone didn't take 40 days off in a row. Of course.
40?
Yeah. It's never happened.
No one will know.
No one will know. Yeah, of course. And that's the thing too, is it's people who are buying into the system. So that's part of what's so important about our recruiting system and our hiring system is we're very assessment based. We're very, like I said, cultural based. So we're looking for people that fit our culture and that will make the right decisions. And we, again, I use this term, but we give you the opportunity to hang yourself. So yeah, you can request 3 weeks off. And if you can figure out how to balance it, perfect. If you can't, then unfortunately you know.
Yeah, that's the great thing about like doing sales is that it doesn't matter if you're in Antarctica, you're with a bunch of Eskimos in an igloo, or you're in Hong Kong. Like as long as you answer the calls and you're prepared and you sound good, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Publicists, maybe it might be a little bit different work environment.
You can do a lot of it remote. We have a publicist in Croatia. We have one in the UK. We have one in Canada.
Yeah,
yeah, great.
Wow. Interesting. The last thing I want to talk to you about is setting up benefits, 401k, health, dental. I feel like nobody knows how to do that until you actually have to do it. What does that look like?
Yeah, so that was actually pretty brutal for me, just because I wanted to make sure that we did it right, and that obviously cost effective for us for a startup, but also the best benefits possible. Because I personally have had some minor health issues throughout my life, and I know a lot of people who rely on healthcare. So what I did, and it's kind of how I make any decision, is you're hiring a broker. So there's a third party that you'll go through, kind of the same thing as an insurance agent. And so you'll reach out to all these people, and what they'll do is they'll basically give you quotes. It's as simple as that. But there's different things to look at. There's holistic insurance, there's full coverage, there's different plans. There's, are you going to give your contractors insurance? And once I got through everything, I realized that it was really a lot more simple than I thought. So what we ended up doing is I actually just picked the same. We use Florida Blue. I picked the same healthcare that I was already using, and the person that basically quoted me the fastest and was very responsive to me and gave me very clear numbers and kind of explained why this was best for our business. And I didn't add a lot of fluff. So we have 401k, we have healthcare, dental, vision, life insurance, and it all kind of got packaged in together.
Wow, life insurance.
Yeah, there's life insurance too.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, we cover life insurance. But as a company, another thing I was looking for is, we're a very digital software-based company. So I wanted a dashboard. I wanted, my team to go on, see 2 or 3 choices, be able to quickly pick them, see what they would have to pay out of pocket, what we're going to cover out of pocket, and then just go. And so I was looking at that. At the end of the day, it ended up being a pretty easy decision. I did get 5 quotes. It took me a couple months because I was just really overwhelmed with the process at the time. We didn't have an HR coordinator, HR manager. but it was kind of a set and forget it. Once it was set up, it was done.
It's all systematic.
Yeah, and it's just a healthcare broker, and then that's it.
How much does that impact the business profits? Like, how much does it cost a business to do that for their employees?
It's not as expensive as I thought, and that was one of our fears. It's fairly reasonable. And as you scale, we started doing it when we had about 20 employees. And so it was critical. By law, you have to do it once you have 50 employees. But
15?
50.
50. Okay.
Maybe it's 49.
You can have 48 and be like, no, sorry, guys.
Yeah, you can have 48, but also it becomes important for recruiting and hiring and getting the best talent is, if you're not offering the same benefits, at a certain point, people are taking a risk on you. And so for the first, year, we were saying benefits are coming. We're hoping to have them, by Q1, whatever. And so at some point we had to deliver on that. And so we did it several years before we needed to, in the sense of, we still don't legally have to do it yet. We're at 48, and we're actually at 48, not 50 employees. So we still legally don't have to offer that, but we did it way, way early because it was critical for us to take care of our team. Again, the mental health, making sure that everyone's insured on the team is a critical thing. So a couple of our employees didn't have insurance, and so we want to make sure that we change that.
Right. Yeah. No, insurance is important, because if you look at your overall salary, right? Let's say you're a publicist, and you look at your overall salary of getting paid X amount, but the company doesn't provide all those things, a 401k, they don't provide dental, they don't provide vision, life insurance, health insurance, right? Those are all things that you have to consider. Like, well, I'm making, let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm making $85,000 a year, but I'm really not. I'm making like 68. Because I have to pay all this out, versus another company is paying 85 plus benefits.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does help with competitive.
Those benefits add up. You get the health insurance and the 401k alone. Just those two things can add, $5,000-$10,000 a year in benefits.
Easy.
But those would have come straight out of your pocket. I think I was paying like $8,000 a year before in just health insurance. And so there you go. And we got the team great rates, so it's very beneficial.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool, man. 80-20. If you had to leave our listeners with one thing on how to go from 0 to 50, what's the main thing you leave them with?
I'd say the biggest thing is knowing when to hire. So as you scale and you're hitting capacity, you need to put someone else in there. You need to take that project off of your plate and move it to someone else, train them, and then move on, learn something new, then repeat. And that's kind of how you do it. It's just continuously fill up your abilities, learn something really well, and then pass it along and move on. Don't do it again.
You heard it here, folks. Listen, Scott, I could talk to you for hours. Any last words before we end this thing?
Just appreciate having me.
Yep, absolutely. From Justin to Scott, Scott to Justin, this is the Scaling Secret Podcast, brought to you by RPR, and we are out. See you next time.